She Said is a 2022 American biographical drama film directed by Maria Schrader and written by Rebecca Lenkiewicz, based on the 2019 book of the same title by reporters Jodi and Twohey. The film stars Carey Mulligan and Kazan as Twohey and Kantor respectively, and follows their New York Times investigation that exposed Harvey Weinstein's history of abuse and sexual misconduct against women. Patricia Clarkson, Braugher, Jennifer Ehle, and Samantha Morton co-star, with Ashley Judd appearing as herself. The book was optioned in 2018 and the film was announced in 2021 as a co-production between Annapurna Pictures and Plan B Entertainment. Filming took place in New York with cinematographer Braugher. During post-production, editing was completed by Hans-Jörg Weisbrech and the score was composed by Nicholas Brittle. She Said had its world premiere at the 60th New York Film Festival on October 13, 2022 and was released in the United States on November 18, 2022 by Universal Pictures. The film received generally positive reviews from critics who praised the screenplay and the performances of Kazan and Mulligan. It was also named one of the best films of 2022 by the American Film Institute. However, it was a box office flop, grossing just $13 million against a production budget of $32 million. The film was nominated for Best Actress in a Supporting Role for Mulligan and Best Adapted Screenplay for Lenkiewicz at the 76th British Academy Film Awards. It also earned Mulligan a Golden Globe Award nomination and Lenkiewicz a Critics' Choice Award nomination. On October 5, 2017, Jodi and Twohey from the New York Times revealed substantial allegations of sexual misconduct by Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein, accusing him of 3 decades of sexually harassing actresses, female production assistants, temps, and other employees at Miramax and the Weinstein Company. The allegations served as a catalyst for the burgeoning Me Too movement and eventually resulted in Weinstein being sentenced to 23 years of imprisonment. In 2019, Kantor and Twohey published She Said, a book detailing the different processes they employed to investigate and uncover Weinstein's sexual misconduct. The rights to the book were optioned in 2018 by Annapurna Pictures and Plan B Entertainment. In June 2021, Universal Pictures announced they were developing an adaptation with Kazan and Carey Mulligan in negotiations to star as Kantor and Twohey. It was also reported that Maria Schrader was attached to direct from a screenplay by Rebecca Lenkiewicz, with Brad Pitt, Didi Gardner, and Jeremy Kleiner set to produce. Schrader and Lenkiewicz said they wanted the film to be less focused on the reenactments of Weinstein's abuse and harassment and more about the woman who was silenced. Lenkiewicz said, "Although there is such darkness in the story, there's a lot of beauty and light in the women finding each other." In July 2021, filming began in New York City with cinematographer Braugher. Filming took place at the Times New York headquarters. Pitt's involvement with the film has received scrutiny, as he was made aware of Weinstein's behavior in 1996 by his then-girlfriend, Gwyneth Paltrow, and later by his then-partner, Angelina Jolie, but continued to work with Weinstein after the fact, and because he himself was accused of abusing Jolie and their children in 2016. In August of 2022, Weinstein and his attorneys tried to delay his trial from its October 10, 2022 start date by claiming that the film's marketing and publicity would prejudice any Los Angeles jury against him. Los Angeles Superior Court Judge Lisa Lynch denied the request. Ashley Judd and Gwyneth Paltrow, both famous actresses, were important sources for the New York Times journalist Jodi and Twohey's investigations into Harvey Weinstein. Each play themselves in the film. Paltrow only appears as an off-camera voice on the telephone, but Judd plays herself on screen in a role that Variety's Elizabeth Wagmaster called a key character who enables reporters to break the bombshell story. Actress Rose McGowan, another pivotal source for the real-life story, also appears as an off-screen voice over the telephone, but McGowan ultimately chose not to play herself. 2 other real-life Weinstein survivors and actresses, Sarah Ann Massey and Catherine Kendall, also appear in the film. Massey plays Pulitzer Prize-winning New York Times journalist Emily Steele, who broke the O'Reilly story shortly before the Weinstein story broke, and Kendall plays a former Miramax executive. In the immediate weeks after the Me Too scandal broke, former New York Times journalist Sharon Waxman alleged that the Times had been aware of Harvey Weinstein's sexual assaults of actresses since 2004, but the newspaper had declined to report the assaults following a personal visit to the Times building by Harvey Weinstein. According to actresses Rose McGowan and Asia Argento, Ronan Farrow's dogged persistence on investigating the allegations against Harvey Weinstein, despite the attempts by NBC executives and other powerful media figures to silence him, was the linchpin which followed their stories to be told. In several instances, the women assaulted by Weinstein were more comfortable sharing their stories with Farrow rather than Twohey and Jodi Kantor, due to the New York Times' earlier suppression of the Weinstein investigation in 2004. Mulligan and Kazan are very good friends in real life, and Kazan even served as a bridesmaid at Mulligan's 2012 wedding to Marcus Mumford. The movie correctly depicts the obsession Harvey Weinstein had with the question of whether Gwyneth Paltrow was a source for and or a subject of Jodi Kantor and Twohey's reporting, but it doesn't ever specify why Weinstein was so fixated on Paltrow specifically. During a September 2019 interview with Terry Gross on the National Public Radio program Fresh Air, Twohey and Kantor explained the story behind this preoccupation. So to our surprise, Gwyneth Paltrow had a really powerful story of sexual harassment by Harvey Weinstein and of being threatened when her first really important roles were on the line. And early on in the investigation, when almost nobody in Hollywood would talk to us, she did. And she even tried to help us find other women, but she was very scared to go on the record, and it became clear in the course of the investigation that Harvey Weinstein was obsessed with the question of whether or not we were actually speaking to Paltrow. He apparently showed up at a party at her house early. She called us from the bathroom completely panicked. In a sort of series of final confrontations about the story that took place in the New York Times, Weinstein kept hammering us. Are you talking to Gwyneth? Is Gwyneth in the story? At that point, she was totally a secret source. We couldn't figure out why he was so obsessed with something that wasn't even a part of the story. The answer only became clear over the course of weeks and months after they broke the story, as more and more Weinstein victims came forward. And they said publicly, they told us, and they even told Paltrow, that Weinstein had said to them, and that in the course of harassing and assaulting them was essentially, don't you want what Gwyneth has? Basically, he was implying to them that if you slept with him, you would get to her star status. He would say, essentially, if you go along with this, you could also have Oscar, wealth, the fame, the golden girl status. Paltrow, of course, was very, very upset to learn about this. Not only had she never sexually succumbed to Weinstein, but she was so horrified to find out that she had been used essentially as a tool of predation. She spent a long time on the phone in the fall of 2017 with the other Weinstein victims, coming to terms with the way he had used her, and with the feeling like she had somehow been used as an accessory in all of this. This is probably why Weinstein was so obsessed with the Paltrow story, as if the other women heard that Paltrow actually had not given in to him, and yet had still gone on to achieve major success. His scheme of tempting these women with sex and bribery would fall apart. She said was also the subject of a minor mix-up at the British Academy of Film and Television Awards, when presenter Troy Kotsur signed the name of the correct winner, Kerry Condon, but the sign language interpreter incorrectly spoke aloud Kerry Mulligan's name instead. This mistake was quickly rectified and the entire debacle was edited out of the BBC One broadcast, so only those present in the auditorium witnessed the mix-up. Now, I found this to be an absolutely superb film, well edited, well written, and well acted. Of course, it tells the real-life story of the most heinous and disgusting behavior by the powerful Harvey Weinstein. I think with films like this, based on actual fact-based stories, it's very difficult now to provide the entertainment per se and keep the audience interested. But for me, She Said does this very well and still allows the journalistic integrity to shine through. This film is a testament to the power of journalism and courage from women who suffered sexual harassment or assault at Weinstein's hands and came forward at personal risk to their careers, reputations, and very well-being. I feel the film handles the sexual assaults with sensitivity and respects the survivors and tries not to be too sensationalist. There's almost a straightforwardness to the way the story is told, a strong restraint rather than embracing the combination of salacious over-dramatization. Here the details of the allegations are shared and not shown, and Director Schrader trusts that we know what happened and we don't necessarily have to see it, and rather we are told now through the women's stories. This is a story about survivors, also about the systemic sexism, systemic abuse and systemic intimidation and despair over really nothing changing until a whole movement had to be formed. Let's not for a moment believe that all the wrongs have been righted now, but what this film does do, though, is highlight one of the big players within this whole web of lies and deceit. I thought both performances here by the lead actresses and Kazan and Mulligan are superb, and they play their roles to perfection, playing within the story rather than dominating it. Mulligan plays Megan as a woman who's on the edge and brings obvious conflict to the role, where Kazan emphasizes Kantor's empathy, her skill at building trust and coaxing information out of even the most reluctant of ladies. I also love the little cameo performances, if you will, from Samantha Morton and Jennifer Ehle, who bring a beautiful vulnerability to their two quick roles. Clarkson and Andre Braugher also have built-in strength into their roles as they sort of play background characters to Twohey and Kantor. I also particularly enjoyed that you got a little bit of backstory about Twohey and Kantor, as you now see Twohey battling with postpartum depression and Kantor worrying about her preteen daughter. This is a journalistic story told from a woman's perspective. And what the film never does, though, is lose its sense of identity in telling this most outrageous of stories, but in the same breath, all the while keeping you entertained, as it were. One thing, though, that really added to the gravitas of the film was having Ashley Judd appear as herself. She, of course, was one of the few actresses to break silence and actually say that Harvey Weinstein had assaulted her. And I think just having her appear, in albeit a brief cameo, just adds a sense of gravitas and weight to the story. This is a superbly well put together film with some excellent acting, great storytelling, and handles a very sensitive story with exceptional class. She Said gets a 9 out of 10.